Yeah, I'm fried.
How are you, Kelton?
I'm deeply fried.
I'm Krisserin.
And I'm Kelton Wright.
Follow our quest to publish our first novels.
From first drafts to query letters.
Through inevitable rejections.
And hopefully eventual success.
From California
to Colorado. This is Pen Pals. Yeah, which brings us to episode 1 of Pen Pals. Krisserin, what are we doing?
What are we doing? I don't know. I feel like you and I both have such busy lives, and the times when we do connect, I feel like the first thing I text you when I haven't talked to you in a while is like, hey, how's writing going? Have you been writing? What's it like writing with a brand new baby? Do you find time? Do you have brain capacity?
These are also only questions that another writer can ask. Like when someone asks me these questions, like, how's the novel going with the baby? And they're not a writer. I'm like, don't ask. But if you're another writer, you know already what the answer is. And that if I say anything remotely positive, that's a surprise and a delight moment for us both. So when I get the question from you, I have this safe space to be like, it's going poorly, actually. And part of the reason that we're doing this is because we wanted to have those conversations between two trying to be writers.
We're writers.
We're writers, but we're actually being workers. Most of our day is being workers.
Yeah.
And talking about how we make writing happen when so many other things in our lives are trying to take precedence.
Yeah. It's nice to just have someone to check in on, because I feel like when anyone who's not a writer asks me this question, and actually, to be honest, it's almost validating when people who aren't writers ask me this question, because it feels like they are saying, I see that this is something that you're trying to do, and I acknowledge it, and I validate it, or it feels validating, but then it also feels like, why are you asking? Why are you asking me? Why are you asking me?
What do you think is happening?
No, it's not published yet. Like, can't you just self-publish? Shut up. Just shut up.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I feel like having someone to check in on you and being able to be honest with them, because it almost feels like when someone who's not a writer asks me that question, I have to come up with an answer that's not vulnerable. I can't be vulnerable and tell them I'm really struggling right now, because they don't want to hear that. They just want to hear like, oh yeah, it's going great. I'm writing all the time. It's amazing. But I can tell you, actually, I'm really struggling and I feel like it's going nowhere and I've lost all hope and I'm, completely demoralized by the process of trying to query and find an agent,
Totally. And it's like a lot of the times I find that the people in my life who are not writers, there's just no way for them to say the right thing.
Yeah.
Because it's always encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
And the encouragement always makes me want to like pull my eyelids off my eyes and just like fillet them on the cutting board. Like I'm like, please don't encourage me. It makes me feel like a child. Like this is some like stupid hobby I have. I know that's a me issue.
Yeah.
Just gonna write that down later for my therapist. But yeah, it's nicer when it's someone who's doing the work alongside you. Like I guess there are times like when my friends who are musicians or painters, things like that, are like in that artistic grind, I can take it from them.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you get it. You're in it.
Yeah.
But it is hard when
On the
someone
point of
says,
like, don't
"How's the
ask me
novel?"
about the thing that that fills my life with meaning. Don't ask. No, it's true though. I think that other artists kind of understand. Other artists understand how hard it can be, and I think the thing that I'm trying to move into this year is focusing less on any type of success that comes with writing or accomplishment or achievement, because I feel like when I think about those things, all of the joy of writing just completely abandons me. And I feel like my work suffers and I forget why I do it. I don't know about you, but if I don't write for a certain period of time, my mental health is just absolute crap. And I feel like I'm just going through the motions of my day whether it's work or childcare or taking care of the house. And I'm just, living to service others rather than living to fill myself up.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to focus on that. I'm trying to focus on getting back to enjoying writing and doing it for myself, and that feeling of solving a problem or putting down a sentence that feels really good or getting really excited about the characters that you're writing about. But it all goes back for me, and why I want to have these conversations with you, to accountability, really, right?
Yeah.
Having someone who you can talk to and check in with, and actually think through problems with writing, because I feel like that's something that you don't get a lot with other people. Is just, what are you working on? How's it going? What did you struggle with this week? What
Yeah.
are you trying to get done this week? What are you hoping to accomplish by next week? I think that will be really helpful for me anyway.
Yeah, I'm really good at holding myself accountable. What I am not good at is motivation toward bigger goals. Like I write a weekly newsletter. I've been doing that for 3.5-ish years now, and I write it almost every Sunday. I think in total, excluding maternity leave that I forced myself to take from the newsletter, I think I have given myself 8 weeks off out of the 70 to 80 weeks I've been writing it. So, like a good American, I only take a couple weeks off every year. um, but I need motivation to work on a much bigger goal. So much of my writing throughout my writing career has been instant gratification. I've written a lot of blogs with like varying levels of popularity, and I never worked with an editor. I was always just like blah 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 publish. And that has worked for me in a lot of different ways, but it doesn't push my writing. It doesn't make me a better writer. And it is not directly laddering up to my big goal, which is to be a novelist. I have tabled a lot of my own novels over the years. I have been working on, I think, probably four different novels since 2014 when I really started diving into fiction. So that's over 10 years now. And of course, I was like, you know what? When I'm really going to dig into writing a novel is when I have a baby. I'm just like, what was wrong with me? I had all these 10 years without a baby to be working on this. And now I have a 7th month old, and I'm just like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write the novel. But I have had the most success I've had so far in digging into it. And I need someone to be like, write the fucking novel, Kelton. And so that's partially why I'm here, because I know you will say literally that to me.
If you want me to, verbatim, I can say that.
Yeah.
That's so interesting because if you think about the output that you've done in 3 years with your newsletter, which is not by any means, I mean, if people who are listening haven't subscribed to your newsletter and haven't read it, it's not a small feat. It is beautiful essays written every single week that are thoughtful and um, vulnerable, and all the things that I could never do. I could never write an essay. I have to I try and I'm such a coward. I distance my personal feelings and myself from my writing as much as I can. I mean, it's all filtered through a different perspective. I'm trying to write in first person right now, and it's nearly impossible. But if you think about the amount of words you've written in 3 years of a newsletter, it's got to be a couple novels.
Oh yeah, it's I think over 300,000 words now. If
Yeah, that's
you
three long novels. That's
three
incredible.
long ass novels.
So what is it
And
you think that's keeping you? Because you did go on maternity leave and took a break from writing the newsletter. Do you think that time that you weren't committed to having to have weekly output let you step back and start thinking about the novel that you wanted to work on?
oh, certainly. I was taking a lot of walks through the woods here. I raise my eyebrows because Woods is the name of my child now. But when I'm walking through the woods, I talk to myself. I talk to myself every opportunity I get in life. I love talking to myself, and it's how I build dialogue and stories. I live in the middle of nowhere. There's like nobody here. So I can just yap and yammer away in the
Literally,
woods.
like, out loud, you talk to yourself.
Oh, out loud, out loud. I'm like having like dialogue between characters
Wow.
out loud because that's sort of how I get to know my characters is that they like talk. I mean, it sounds like I have some sort of mental disorder, and I have several, but not this one. It's how I get to know them is like their voices and the things they're talking about and the things that bother them and how they talk to each other. Dialogue is my favorite thing to write, which is amazing because there's almost like none in my newsletter. Occasionally it gets in there. Occasionally I'll include a conversation, but having that time to just go on walks and like tell stories to myself and to my unborn child, it was a great time to step away from the like, what am I writing this week, what am I writing this week, what am I writing this week, to
Mm.
just like have some fun with some characters. And that is when they came to fruition for me, is when I was just holding that baby.
First of all, I think it's incredible that you speak your book into existence. Um,
Well, it's we've spoken it into an idea.
into an idea. Well, I think so much about being a writer and a mother is finding those times in between the busy times to get words on a page or to get some writing done. So as you are, I mean, what's his 7 months now? He's gonna be, I don't want to scare you. He's gonna be a year old soon. And you're probably gonna start working again. You still have your newsletter. When are you gonna find the time?
Well, I have 3 clients that I work for right now. I write 2 editions of the newsletter per week. Um, and then there's the baby. We don't have any childcare. So none of our family lives here, and we can't get into any of the daycares. And so it's probably going to be at least another year, it seems like, until we move up the wait list. So my husband Ben and I trade off with the baby. And so far, when I find the time, it is the time I used to use to exercise.
Mm,
Um, and there had to be a sacrifice. Something had to get cut. And it was movement. And movement is a huge part of my life. I was a sponsored cyclist for a long time. I'm a trail runner, a hiker, a mountain biker, a skier. And I just was like, you know what, babe, if you want to write a book, you can write a book. I think you can do it in 5 months, like the first rough, shitty draft. And then you can get fit in the 5 months after if you wanted to. I can always get fit again, but I kind of have to stop doing something to give myself the time to write this book.
mm,
And like, I'm moving so much during the day, anyways, with the baby and like essentially weightlifting, that I still feel embodied. I feel in my body. And I know when I get too far from that place that it's like, go for the walk.
mhm,
But right now, that's what I tabled. And so that gives me an extra hour a day. And then whenever the baby goes to sleep, right now he's holding me hostage when he goes to sleep. He
uh-oh.
like knows if I leave his side. So
Mm,
I just leave the computer in the bed. And then when he goes to sleep in between nursings, I just turn to the computer and like tap, 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 tap. And, and like lastly, I want to shout out that Ben is also great when I'm like, I need an hour uninterrupted today, where like, I don't care if he's hungry. I don't care if he misses me. I care. I care. But like, keep him away from me. Go outside. Just let me do 1 hour, because
mm,
Ben does get uninterrupted work. He is a woodworker. He can't have the baby when he's working. Like,
mm,
it's even if he was just like lightly tapping a nail, it's like there's too many chemicals in the wood
mm.
shop, there's too much sawdust, the baby's not allowed in there. So how do I find the time? I drag it out of the system.
I love that. I'm the same way with my kids. Well, when I was working full time, I'm not working full time right now. I did most of my writing on the weekends, and I would sit in the garage and try and get hours of work done. And I would, but my kids know where I am, and especially, my youngest wants me. She's a Velcro baby right now, so she will literally open the door and say, "I want you." And part of me is like, I don't
Yeah.
know how long that's gonna last, and
Yeah.
it's so sweet, and she just wants to be next to me. But sometimes I have to say, "I love you, go away," which is such a horrible feeling. I
Yeah.
wonder, like, when they grow up, is this what they're going to talk to their therapist about? Like, my mom didn't want to spend time with me when I was little. But because I remember with my mom's also a writer. There would be times when I was young where she needed space, and I didn't understand that. And I
Yeah.
remember feeling hurt by it and feeling rejected by it. But now that I'm a mother and I'm an adult, I understand that need to feel like an autonomous, yeah, right, human
Mhm.
being, to feel like I am my own person, and to have physical space from people and mental space from people, even if they're the people I love the most in the world. So for me, the struggle has been, can I find quiet time, quiet uninterrupted time where I can focus on my book, because it's not just sitting in front of the computer and
Mhm.
looking at the words on the page. Because if there are interruptions, even if it's like my phone, a notification goes off or something, my mind spirals out, and I have to kind of refocus my energies and my
Mhm.
brain power on what I'm working on. And like I said, my mom's a writer, and she was listening to something that Margaret Atwood said, which was basically, if you are married and if you have children and you're a writer, you are going to have to deal with interruption.
Mhm.
I feel like um, it it is unfair in some senses that we get robbed of that kind of like singular time and focus. But I guess that's just what it is when you're a mom and you have other people who are relying on you. And there's something very nice about feeling needed, you know.
Yeah, and I
I'm
think it
also
also
trying to model to my girls, that it's okay when they get older, if they decide to have children or get married, which at this point they don't want to have kids. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? No, they never want to leave home. It's great. But I want them to know that it's important to take time for yourself. I think that even though
yeah.
when I was little, I didn't understand that when my mom wanted space, I think it's because she did that now I feel like it's okay for me to do the same thing. So I want to give that to them as well.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful to show them that you're a full person who needs these things. It's funny, as a kid, I was very much like, can everybody just leave me alone? Like, can I just have my space? Like, we joke about how when I think I was 7, when I was like, uh, I ran away because I was just like,
At
I,
7,
I, well, I left them a note that was like, I've got it from here.
that is the most Kelton thing I've ever heard.
I was just like, you know what?
At
I
7,
think I
I'm good.
understand the world. I think I can handle this. I love the boxcar kids, you know. I was just like, I'm ready to strike out on my own. And, my parents were like, what if we just let you start making your own breakfast? And I was like, okay, that's a fair trade.
Good compromise.
And my mom still laughs. She's just like, whenever you had a problem, you were like, excuse me. And you would just go to your room and shut the door. And in a couple hours, you would come out and you would have solved it.
If
And my therapist is like, Kelton, that actually was not healthy. You were just way too independent. This is why you don't know how to ask for help. But I grew up wanting that space. I still love having that space. And I'm appreciative of being like in a setup where I can carve some of it out. Worst case scenario, Woods is still taking contact naps when we let him. And so if I really want to think through something, strap him to me, go for a walk. He's out like a light, and I'm just, chatting to the trees.
Chat into the Trees, a memoir by Kelton Wright.
So, I mean, for the people who don't know us well, I think we should set up what we're writing.
Mm.
Um, our big projects that we want to work on with each other, which we've alluded to. Uh, yeah. Tell me what makes you a writer? What are you working on?
Oh God, this is why do I have to start?
Listen, I'll
Um,
go first. I'll go first. I'll
no,
set it up.
I can go. No, it's fine. I ended 2024 thinking I'm ready for this year to be over, and then 2025 came and just kicked my ass. So, as of this recording, it's the 16th of January. We're 16 days in, and I started the year really lost because last year at this time, I was getting ready to query agents for this new adult speculative fiction book that I had written in a fugue, the first draft. It had gone through four different rewrites, including a full edit with an editor that I paid for. And I felt really good about where the novel was. I felt ready to query it. So I queried 70 agents last year, starting in March. I got 3 requests for full manuscripts. Only one of them was an agent that I queried. Two of them were agents that I was introduced to through connections, and then nothing. So nothing happened, completely ghosted. I followed up at the end of summer. I gave them, well, what is that? 4 months to read the novel. Followed back up at the end of summer because I guess New York shuts down during the summer and people are kind of coming back to work in August. Still nothing.
For
So
what it's worth to the readers, it took me what, a week to read your manuscript?
yes, Kelton was one of my first readers. I felt like the book was a fast read personally.
It's a fast read. I liked it. I think about it often.
Thank you.
Not in the context of you like being my friend, not in the like I wonder when like Krissen's going to get published. I think about the heart of the book in the context of my everyday life. I don't want to give away anything about your book, but I do still think about a lot of the things that you wrote about in that book, even though it was like a fun, fast read.
Oh, that makes me feel really good because honestly, like anything having to do with art, there's so much rejection involved, and you really have to um, develop a thick skin with these things. And you know, my editor, and who's also my teacher, he basically said the only thing that counts is rejection, like real rejections, and real rejections are people who have read your novel
Hmm.
and said no. And I haven't even gotten there yet. I've had 3 full manuscript requests. The fact that I haven't heard from them signals to me that they haven't read it. Typically, from what I know in the past, if there was a request for a full manuscript, you would get some sort of note back, whether it was even if
Hmm.
it was a no with some notes. And this is not the first book that I've written and queried. I worked on a book. Wow, over like 13 years ago that I had queried. And I got notes back from agents that were like, this was really well written. And here are the reasons why I'm not the right agent for you, but here are the things I liked about the novel. Here's the things where you could dig in. And I'm
Yeah.
not even expecting that, but even it's not for me, best of luck in your journey type of email would have been appreciated. So the fact that I'm not even getting to the stage where someone's reading my novel shows me that there's probably something wrong with my query. So, my like I said at the beginning, my goals for this year are to find the joy in writing again because I ended 2024 completely demoralized from that entire process because I had worked so hard on that book. And I really did love it. And it was meant to be a duology. I was 50,000 words into the second book, but I lost all steam on that
Yeah.
second book because I just felt like if nothing's happening with this first book, writing the second book feels completely pointless. What am I going to do with it? Which is insane because when I started this book, I was like, I'm just going to publish this on Wattpad. This is a really fun story that I
Yeah.
feel like young people will connect to. I'm just going to publish it on Wattpad and not care what happens. But then I got caught up in the process of like, I need to find a legitimate agent and make this a real thing. So um, I think I'm going to try to rework that query. It's the thing I'm least excited about doing right now. But a book that I started in 2012 that I was working on, I was a Penn USA Emerging Voices Fellow in 2013, which feels an age ago. But that was the book that I was writing and workshopping while I was in that fellowship. I've been thinking about it a lot because it's my big book. I think everyone has one big book in them that is the is why they wanted to write, and it carries the themes that are most important to them. Which for me is talking about generational trauma, and I'm really fascinated about the women who made me and the women who made them. And so the book that I'm working on right now is a story about um, a line of women who come from a family where all the women believe they have this curse that's kind of like passed down to them. And a lot of it also has to do with alcoholism and sobriety, which is something I quit drinking almost 2 years ago. Um, that I feel like is really important. It's really important to me and in a story that I want to tell. And it's kind of been sitting in my subconscious and always living there. And so I sat down with it recently, before the world went up in flames, and started rethinking it and um, rewriting it in first person, which has been crazy because I'll write it and then I'll be writing a paragraph in first person and then I'm in third person and I go read it back. I'm like, what's happening here? I don't know if the whole book will be in first person. I'm really struggling with it, and also tense in first person, I feel like, is a really tricky
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Maybe you can give me some pointers there, but I'm enjoying it, and I'm feeling like, with the distance that I've had from it, because I haven't worked on it since when I went into my Scrivener drafts. I think the last one was 2016, so
Oh,
it's been a
wow.
while.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a better writer now. I feel like the problems that I had with the novel around timelines and flashbacks and all of these things that I was really struggling with, I feel like I've gotten so much stronger that there are problems that I can tackle and I can see clearly now. So that's what I'm working on. And my goal is to hopefully rewrite the whole book this year. And it's literary fiction. It's not speculative, even though I really like genre writing. So that's my goal. And this week, I really just want to nail this first chapter and get the first chapter down and play with some things and do things differently.
That's exciting. Oh, I didn't know that. How fun.
How about you?
Well, I want to acknowledge that I don't know anything about genres. I feel like I need to read a list of like 50 genres because people keep asking me what the novel I started working on now is going to
Mhm.
be, and I'm like, it's fiction. I don't know beyond.
But you read genre fiction.
Yeah, but like, I'm not like in the library being like, what genre is this in? And like every time I think I know what a genre is called, it finds out I'm wrong. I really thought magical realism was one thing for years until finding out recently that it's something totally different than what I had been calling books.
Well,
I don't want to tell you.
what do you
I don't want
mean?
to tell you. We're going to get into genre on a different episode.
What
We're
do
going
you
to
mean?
leave that, and I'm going to tell you now what I'm working on.
All right.
So obviously every week I write a newsletter on Substack called Shangri-Logs, shangrilogs.substack.com. That is essentially a diary of living in a very small mountain town at 10,000 feet. Um, and like what it means to be a part of a community and part of nature. And I write a free essay every Sunday and then a paid edition every Wednesday. And I have a great community there. I love writing it. I'm going to continue doing that. And I do want to talk about like how do you continue to have content every week? Is it worth writing every week if you're just trying to like shove an essay out? And then the novel, my big project for this year, my goal was to finish the first draft by my baby's first birthday, which is the end of May. I wanted to hit somewhere around like 75, 80,000 words. And I am just shy of 10,000 words right now. And I have the book more or less outlined.
Mm,
Um, and it is, I don't know, there's dead people in it. There's mystery in it.
mhm,
Uh, there's like animals who are a little more sentient than usual.
mm,
Like, like light fantasy light. We're not going back in time. This isn't medieval.
mhm,
But there's some magic afoot. Um, I love escapist novels. That is the number one thing that I read.
mm.
I don't. like to think about problems I could have. I like to think about problems that are impossible. Um, and that's way more fun for me. Those are the books I always turn to. And I also love romance. So there's a little bit of romance in my book, and I'm trying right now to just like let that be what it is. And then I'll see if I want to take it out or amp it up
Mm.
later in the future. Later in the future. That's where the future is. Um, I need help getting that book done. And you are the person I turn to when I think about big work that is not just like sent out into the world without any editing. It's hard for me to like work on something that I know is going to take forever.
Mm.
And the more I read about the publishing industry, I read a lot of newsletters about publishing, and everyone's like, it takes years. It takes years to write, years to edit, years to query, years to publish. And they were like, so look at a journey of like minimum 5 years. And I'm like, but what if it magically just all happened in 1 year? And it's like my my therapist, praise be Donna, is always like, just let your brain think it'll be 1 year, because if you tell yourself 5 years, you won't do it. Like, that's something you get to know about yourself. On
Mm.
the list of rules to know about Kelton, I won't commit if I know it's going to take forever. I will move on to something else even when I don't want to. And so in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, the book will be done in 5 months, and then I will deal with what happens next. So that's my big challenge for this year. I'm super excited about writing a novel. I started writing fiction in 2014 on a retreat in Guatemala with Anne Friedman. Um, and I wrote this a short story that I still love. And part of the reason I love it is because whenever other people read it, they're like, that was weird. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. That's like, you just read the real me in that story. And I love that feeling when you can see someone being like, oh, you're kind of fucked up. And you're like, yeah, I've been trying to tell everybody that this very normal package is really strange. And writing is the best way I've been able to get people to see that. And so I think about that short story all the time. I submitted it a bunch, and nobody, no lit magazines or anything wanted it. Nobody even wrote back. Um, and I think that really put a stake in fiction for me for a long time.
Mm.
And I am trying now to just be like, babe, just write the story. And similar to you in Wattpad, I'm like, I could just serialize it on Substack. Like, why not? It'll be a fun story for somebody.
Yeah.
But similar to you, I'm also like, but wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool to be published like Big Five?
What is it about writing, or at least at this stage of writing of my writing career, our writing careers, where we've been writing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 40. You're gonna be there soon.
Yeah. I'm
I mean, you just
coming
turned
up behind you.
30. That it feels like there's a timer on your work. Like it needs to happen. Like we're running out of time. Not that we're running out of time, but just like it needs to happen already. Like I
I mean,
want it to happen fast, and I want
yeah.
it. You know what I mean? Do you feel that way
Oh,
too?
all the time. Back in my youth, I was a singer, and I always told myself, I was like, if you don't make it by the time you're 24, you should give up. Because I was like, the music industry wants you young and hot, and it's like, past that, you need to be more talented than I was. I knew that part. I was like, I'm not talented enough or hardworking enough to become a working musician. I either am gonna like just make the right connection when I'm young and hot, or it's not gonna happen. And I don't know why that thinking still bleeds over for me into writing. Um, Part of me thinks I was absolutely right about singing, but with writing, I'm like, anytime I read a debut novel that's really good and then I find out the writer is like 25, I'm like, this little piece of shit.
100%.
I'm like, fuck you.
I was like, who are your parents?
I know. I'm like, all
Who
right,
do you
you're the
know?
queen.
What nepo
And
baby is
then
this.
inevitably they're just, like, really good, and you're like, "Now I wanna die. I hate myself. I'm the worst." And it's I think part of it is, like, you want it to be your career, and
Yes.
so your career starts at what, 22?
Yeah.
And, it's like, it's not like that. Art is not like that. And I the novel I'm working on now, I could not have written
Yeah.
any earlier than, like, 2 years ago. Like, it's so based on some of the experience I've had in my very late 30s. It just didn't exist in my mind before that. And so I'm grateful that, like, it's the piece I'm working on now, but I do feel an urgency, a and I think some of that is just embarrassment related. Like, people are like, "So you're a writer? What's happening?" And you're like, oh god. I think that's one thing about the newsletter that really, really puts me at ease is that I have that. It's funny because, like, locally, people are like, "So you write a blog, right?" And I'm like, "Wow, drag me out back and shoot me." Um, but
Like, and it's 2012.
yeah, I'm like, I did write a blog in 2012, you are right. But, I do wanna feel accomplished in my craft, and I think that in order to feel that way, it's like no matter what kind of writer you are, you want, like, a certain screenplay under your belt, you want a byline in certain publications, you want a novel that a person could find at Barnes& and Noble.
Mhm.
It's like there are these benchmarks that make you feel real.
Mhm.
I mean, the sad part is that, inevitably, once you have them, there are just more benchmarks,
Yeah.
and you continue to doubt yourself. So, silly little humans. But it doesn't change us wanting it.
No. And I think you start with, can I call myself a writer? Do I want to tell people that I write? What do you do for a living is the
Yeah.
question everyone asks you when you first meet them, right? Um, and then once you put that out into the world, everyone sets expectations like, oh, have you published anything? Where can I read your work? And
Yeah.
there is this feeling like there is a need for validation, right? And we
Mhm.
do want it to be our careers. Like, I would love to not have to work and just to be able to write. And
Mm,
so there is
mm,
this, like, I don't know, like a little bit of desperation and like, can I get out of the 9 to 5 grind and just focus on the thing that fuels me and is really important to me? And so that imposes a timer on it in and of itself, right?
yeah.
But getting back to it, it's the joy of writing. It's the thing, it's the reason why we do it is because we love it. And when I feel like when I lose sight of it and I get so fixated on these outside validating things that I lose focus of the actual work. And when I was talking to my teacher about it, he basically said, you have to be so good that they can't ignore you. And
Mm,
maybe it's just going to take me, you're going to hate this, maybe it's just going to take me another 10 years
yeah.
to get there, But they say you need 10,000 hours of doing something to be an expert in it, right? I'm
Yeah.
with you. I said about my book, I feel like I'm such a stronger writer now that I've been working on other things now that I'm coming back to it. And I'm hopeful that now I can like sit down and make something of it. And I have to be okay with the fact that I will be at the end of the final draft. There's
Mhm,
always, you can always keep revising, right?
mhm.
But I'll be at the end of the final draft and I'll just feel very proud of the book that I've written and I can move on to the next thing and just keep pushing.
Yeah.
Because there's part of it is the life that you've lived and how, you know, being 40 now informs the work that I'm writing. I've read books by people in their 20s and I'm gobsmacked by the quality of the writing and the story that they're telling, but there's just life experience that is absent of those books, that not that they're not good in themselves, but in 10 years that writer is going to have a even richer story to tell, I feel, because they'll have more life to have lived. But it's also the quality of your craft, right? The way
Mhm.
that I explained it to a friend who wanted to start writing and was thinking about it, I said, you should go take some classes because it's like photography, right? before the age of, and still even digital cameras, we all have our own eye for what makes an incredible photo.
Yeah.
But until we know how the camera works, how to create the settings, what the aperture should be, how to set the white balance, and all of those things, we can't capture it the way that we want to. So until we can learn those things, um, we're just like lacking the tools in our toolbox to really become the best storytellers we possibly could be. So I feel like you and I this year,
This is the year.
this fucking year, um, it'll be the year of taking everything that we've, all of those tools that we've gathered, the stories that we want to tell, the words that we've written that before, to tell
Mhm.
these stories the way that we want to, as long as we can just focus on the joy of writing and not the validation that may or may not come.
Yeah. There's part of my brain that's like, "Don't worry, honey, that validation is there, you keep going."
The only validation that matters is your
Mm.
not me.
Oh god, I wish that was true. Okay, so part of what we're gonna do on this podcast is actually push each other on our goals, which means
Mm,
we have to have goals beyond the big overarching, like, become a writer, query again, fix my novel. We need small goals. And I think keeping track of those with each other is going to be helpful. For me, it's helpful in that I will feel deep shame should I not accomplish them, because I know I will have to look you in the face and be like, I was just like reading essays on Substack for a while. And knowing that there's essentially like a homework that I have to do is for me the number one
mm.
motivator.
So
Um,
what kind of a parent do you want me to be? Because I'm a Libra, so I'm very like I can see why and I can tell you why that might have helped you and be very gentle parenty with it. But I mean, what do you need from me?
I need a disappointed dad.
Ooh,
Yeah. I
okay.
need someone to be like, "I thought you were better than that."
No, I'm not gonna do that to you.
No, for real though, like when I'm, I guess, a good example would be I did not hit my goals for this past week. Um, Not only because I was really distracted by the crises in LA, but also because I got a piece commissioned.
Ooh,
Um, and so I will share next time what that is, because I do want to make sure it gets published and not like just be me getting a kill fee for it.
mm,
But I had a piece commissioned, and so I was like, I have to write this piece. I have 3 days to write it. I cannot work on my novel right now. I only have so many words in me, and
mm.
that one took those words. And I I excused it by being like, well, I thought about my novel. I thought about it a little bit. I was like sitting with the characters in my mind, and
That's
it's like,
writing. That's writing.
yeah, but that wasn't my goal. If my goal for this week was I want to like spend time in my protagonist's head and like live like her for a week and like see what excites her and what bothers her. For me, that's real work on my novel.
Mhm,
But when I'm like, oh, I was just thinking about it, that's me uh avoiding work.
mhm,
So if I'm not putting pen to paper, I need you to be like, what you didn't plan out this week well enough. You didn't ask Ben for enough time. You didn't prioritize that writing. Or especially if I write a really good essay in the newsletter, you can be like, looks where you spent your time this week. Because it's like, I don't have to every week be like, this essay is perfect. Every week I do have to work on the novel. So I do kind of want you to be like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
also
Um,
so antithetical about to how I think about writing. But also
well,
I feel
I
like
mean,
you hold yourself to a word count goal.
yeah, I
I
do.
don't do that at all.
Yeah. I
That works
find
for you? Does
it
that
it works for me, and I
okay.
do, look, we have been corporate girlies in the past,
Mhm.
so I often think of my word count like KPI.
Oh, gross.
I know.
I
Well, I
hate
am a
this.
Capricorn.
I hate everything
We
about
can't
it.
escape who we are, okay? But I think of it as like if my goal every week is 3,500 words. If I get 2,800, I am still proud of myself.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, 3,500 is a reach goal. It's like if you don't get that every week, that's fine. Yeah, and the weeks you do get that or more than that, amazing. You get a raise. Like take yourself out for some cheesecake. But
How often do you hit your goal?
mm, I mean, I started implementing 3,500 words like 4 weeks ago, and I've hit it twice.
Okay, so
So so far,
half of the time.
okay. But I also hold incredible momentum in the beginning of my projects. And I know that about myself. That is another thing Kelton gets to list on the things she knows about herself. And so we are getting into the danger zone now.
Mm,
But I'm also about to make my goal a little more realistic, which I'll get into now. My goal by the next time we speak is to write 2,500 words. I know what scene they're in. I'm like ready to knock them out.
okay. I want to poke at your goal a little bit.
Oh God.
I just want to put some things out for you to consider.
Okay, I'm considering.
Um, I think that when you are setting a word limit goal,
Hmm.
and maybe you're not like this, and maybe I'm projecting, but how much of that is you just trying to fill the bucket? Is it quantity over quality?
I will say right now it is quantity over quality because one of my big hangups in fiction is that I am obsessed with getting it right the first time. And so I'm held back, especially because I write with a lot of magic in my fiction.
Mm,
I'm held back by like, well, where do these people get food? Like, are there no airplanes in this world? Would they never see an airplane flying? And I get so tied up in the weeds that then I don't write anything. And I
mm,
spend all this time like thinking about the world, which is fine. But for me, that has meant I have never finished a fiction project other than that first short story. And so I am trying to work on quantity over quality right now. I want to just get the the shittiest version of this book out to be like it's a book and now you can fix it.
mhm.
um because that has been my problem. I'm just like crawling around in the weeds being like there's ants here, and it's like girl, your story is happening up above. Like what are you doing?
Yeah, I get that. I think, the book that I'm working on now, well, I've written 3 books, 3 full-length books, and have gone through full edits of all of them. They say that writing a book is a marathon. I don't think so. I think writing a book is an ultra marathon. It is 100 grueling miles, where you feel like you're gonna die, and getting it right on the first try is impossible. I wonder if I wonder if it's something to consider once we've like met a couple times and you see how well you're doing on your goal. If there's a way to test a new goal one week for you and maybe
Yeah,
make it more about how much time you're spending with your book rather than how many words you're putting out.
yeah, I'm open to that. um we'll see if I get the words done, because I mean to me it's like how much time I spend on it, how many words I write. Those are both fine goals to me because they're quantifiable. And
Mm.
I know that I have done work. I mean, the hours is a little trickier because I can be pretty evasive with doing work. I'm pretty squirrely with myself. Uh, and I'm very good at lying to myself and to other people. And I
When do
try.
you like what do you have a routine? Do you have a time of day that you work?
No, no, not with the baby. I mean, every day is brand new with him.
Mhm.
And that has forced my hand to be like, you have 30 minutes. Like, sit down and do it right now.
Oh, that's
Um,
hard.
and well, I mean, it is, but it is the most motivated I have ever felt. Having these constraints is incredibly helpful to me. Um,
Right.
and I'm exhausted, and I think I will continue to wear myself down to the bone, but it is the most excited and motivated I have felt. I think I do really, really well with big obstacles and big boundaries. And so I'm just trying to take advantage of that as much as I can before I'm like crawling across the floor, being like, "Where's Aaron? I have nothing. I have nothing left."
Oh my goodness. I feel like it's so interesting because you and I are so different in how we work.
Okay, so
I
tell
am like I'm like a baby. I'm like I need I need my headphones charged. I need my emotional support beverages. So like I have my nettle tea and my Chisandra berry tea and a cup of coffee and my perfect like classical
Mhm,
playlist or lo-fi
mhm.
beats or Ethiopian jazz or whatever music that's setting the tone for me. Um, if the sun is coming through the window at my writing desk, that's like perfect. You know, like
Yeah.
I need this uninterrupted, beautiful moment at my desk in
Mm,
order to be able to focus in on writing. And that is a blessing and a curse because when it
mhm.
happens, it is incredible. And I will sit there and pound out thousands of words
Yeah.
in an hour or two. Um, but when I don't have that, it is really hard for me to get in the zone. And I feel so distracted in a way that, I really feel like I haven't been in a really long time. And maybe it's the fact that I'm getting older. Maybe it's the fact that I drank so much in my youth, but like my brain is so hard at it. I'm having so much trouble focusing. So I've been taking lion's mane and all of these adaptogens and trying to get my brain to work. Um, if I had to steal time in the day, 30
Mhm,
minutes like you do, I mean, maybe it would be a good thing for me because I would feel like, okay, this is it for
mhm.
me. Like I've got to like pound something out right now. But I'm such a baby now. Like I need my space and my time to be creative. Revision is not that way. So I think like in the first draft phase when your brain needs like space to breathe and explore and find things. And I'm also not an outliner like you
Mhm.
are. I find the story while I'm writing it and I play with dialogue while I'm writing it and I'm hearing the voices in my head as I'm putting the words down on the page. Um, but with when I'm revising, I can do that anywhere. I can do it in a cafe while my kids are
Yeah.
piano lessons or whatever. I can sit down and like look at the words and the pages and you know problem solve in that way. But in terms of my goal for the week, I I kind of think in scenes. If I can get to an end of a scene, I feel really good
Mhm.
about my writing. And this first chapter that I'm working on, um, I've been I've been doing it in scene work. And so what I'd really like to do is to get to the end of this first chapter and then revise it by next week. That's
Okay.
my goal. So by next week when we talk, hopefully I'll have something that I'll be proud of that and I can talk about what that process was like and hopefully the world won't be on fire by then so I'll have some time to work.
I mean, I think that's kind of the problem, even if the world is on fire. Um,
But we
s-
have inauguration on Monday, so
Girl, I listen. I'm not watching. Tuned out. I'm
same.
doing what I can locally. Blah blah blah. You
And
know.
we're gonna lose TikTok. So like I won't even know what's going on anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I did give up Instagram mostly for this year. I was back on during the fires because it was the best way to get information, but I did find that we will have a whole episode just dedicated to distractions
Mhm.
and how we manage them. I also am really looking forward to talking to you about being a pantser versus an outliner. This is the first time I've ever outlined anything. I considered myself a pantser my whole life, and that never worked. So I was like, what if you're wrong about who you are? And so I can't wait to talk about that. And I can't wait to work on these projects together. I think this is going to be really fun. Obviously, the reason we're doing this is to hold each other accountable. And I hope that as people listen to this, they feel like they're part of that community with us and they can share what they're working on and how their goals are progressing and tell us what kind of bullshit they want us to talk about to help clear their heads or distract them when they need it. Okay, I loved this. I love you. I'm so glad we're doing this.
I mean, I will say this. The fact that you every week put out a newsletter that goes out to thousands of people.
Yeah, 7,500 people. Bang, bang, bang.
7,500 people is incredible. And it is the highlight of my Sunday.
Oh.
I like get my coffee and like sit in bed. I'm like, oh, let's see what Cousin has to say in Shangri-Logs. And the reason why I'm so excited about chatting with you about books is that I feel like there's so much in your writing that I admire that I wish I had in my own. There is a vulnerability that you bring to the written word, a humor. Your writing is so funny and beautiful and thoughtful and filled with a lot of soul. I really struggle with being vulnerable on the page. Like I said, keep a lot of distance between me and the reader. I can't write a personal essay. It is my worst nightmare. So I think that what I would really hope to come out of this is that I can learn from you on how to imbue my writing with some of the things that you do so well. And I would be so happy if any of the discipline that I have with novel writing could be helpful for you, because I would love to read a Kelton Wright novel. I've always had an inkling that there was some weirdness going on inside of you, but I love that. I read that. I love Gothic novels. I love magical realism, and you live in such an interesting world. Your livelihood, your outdoor nature, being able to be outside and appreciate the owls and the animals and everything. So I feel like the world needs a Kelton Wright novel. So if I can be any help in having that come to light, it will be my honor. So I think that this is going to be a very fruitful
Yeah.
exchange.
You're already more vulnerable than you think. It takes me an entire week to say something that vulnerable.
But you do it in such a beautiful way. I'm just vomiting it out. But yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was delightful. I can't wait for us to rub off on each other. And I hope that people listen to this and are impressioned and delighted and impress us back.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on Pen Pals, where we navigate the highs, lows, and plot holes of being a writer. Like all artists, we love our work to not just disappear into the ether. So please subscribe, leave a review. You know how podcasts work. Share this episode with anyone you know who's ever written something beyond an email. If you've got a story or a struggle you want us to tackle, drop us a line at an email address.
You need an email address?
You need an email address.
I was thinking about that.
Until next time, keep the ink flowing and the words coming, and we are so happy to be here with you. Good writing and good luck.